The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Hey, we're having some fun here on Morning Dump already because it's all smiles after we finish up on Coffee and Cream in the Morning. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers. We're happy to have you with us wherever you catch this podcast, whether that's on Apple or Spotify or if there's somewhere else. I'm not really sure. I only go to Apple or Spotify for my podcast.
Google.
So let me know. Yeah, exactly. Let me know if there's another place that you find us. But we're happy to have you here. If you missed anything,
Yes, Sam, we are.
to the podcast page, maybe.
Are you guys going?
If you
Do you think Sam survived the kid drop-off line today?
maybe.
It is. Listen, I make light of it, but it stinks.
Is it kind of like a Chinese fire drill?
Yes. I've never been in one of those, but I assume it would be chaos. Micah gets out at 2:45. I will be pitching tent at 2:15 to get a spot.
I think you're spot on.
Wow.
Not kidding you.
2:15.
Oh, it's a
30
debacle.
minutes
It's
early.
a debacle. Hey, by the way, do you like my shirt?
I do.
This is,
It's got a stain on it.
Lincoln.
Oh, not your shirt, but your jacket.
Lincoln saved the Big Ten.
Did you get that from the T-shirts over? The one that you spent?
No, my buddy
$200?
Triple B, Josh Bat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he is very, very creative. It's not Scott Rowland. Maybe he'll make me a Keep 'em Rolling shirt,
Ooh, good one.
or rolling.
Keep on rolling.
Or
keep
roll-
on rolling.
Is that REO Speedwagon, Shane?
Sure is.
Man, props to your boy.
Yep, I've seen them in concert. I've actually interviewed the lead singer, Scott
That-
Cronin.
Did he have
REO
his
Speedwagon?
Did he have his curls freshly done?
He was sitting on a keg of beer, 2 kegs of beer, while I was doing the interview.
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you be, right?
Shane, is the keg taller than you?
He was sitting on a couple of them, so, I mean, you take the visual there.
He was sitting on a couple, so you were standing on 3?
I was standing. Yes, I was standing. He was sitting.
Look at him eye to eye. Shit.
And that was on a dry campus, too.
I like.
Oh!
Where was it?
Northwest
Keg of root
Missouri
beer?
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they still dry?
I'm sure they probably are.
Yeah.
Well, Lindenwood was dry when I went there, and then they became partially wet on game days. So I wonder if it would shock me if that football program isn't a game day wet.
Yeah, just because of the tailgating.
Right. And there's nothing going on in Maryville, Missouri other than Northwest Missouri State football.
My man.
Like that town,
The whole Boswick family and
you can drive
Zach
from,
Martin.
You can drive from one end of the town to the other. It's got a Holiday Inn and an Applebee's all the way past A&G's, and you're basically out of town.
What's A&G's?
It is the Greek restaurant in town.
Oh, I would eat there.
It's really good.
I'm a big Euro meat guy.
It's a really good restaurant.
3 sides.
What's the little instrument that they play over in Greece? Like the little, it's like a ukulele, but it's not.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy.
Like a mandolin? Is that what those are called?
Listen to the mandolin rain, just sad song.
Mandolin.
Is that Bruce Hornsby? Shane would know. Hey, but I have a question.
Yeah, it's a mandolin. That's what he was playing.
Hey, I have a question. Does 3
Might not be
sides of
Greek.
Euro meat, 2 pitas, and cheddar cheese sound delicious?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I do. Open pita.
Build it yourself?
Yeah, just meat and cheese, but regular cheese, not feta. Feta is very
Why,
overpowering.
because you're fed up with it?
Yes, I am. That's a soon-to-be dad joke.
I'm already started.
Bad.
What I was trying to say at the beginning of the show, if you missed anything on Coffee and Cream, head over to Hail Varsity Radio's podcast page, and that's where you can find that. Now, in reference to Coffee and Cream, we had our poll question of the day, which was attributing back to what Matt Rhule was talking about with Bussin' with the Boys on their podcast. And speaking of Rhule, we need to get him on soon.
Yeah,
We need to
can do
get
that.
Matt Rhule on soon. I think our listeners would go nuts over that. But in regards to what he said on this podcast,
Rules.
I want you to guess how people answered.
Okay.
And I want to give the options again. So I asked for the favorite quote. I just took 4 from Matt Rhule. And quote number 1 was, "I don't need to move anymore." Quote 2, "This is taking a program to where they have once been." And that was in reference, for those that don't know, that quote was in reference to there's a difference from taking a program to someplace they've never been versus Nebraska, which is taking a program to where they have once been.
It's been at the pinnacle.
So not having the full quote there may skew results with that answer choice. Option 3, have a good time, get a degree, win a championship, go to the NFL. That's him talking about his players. And option D, the slow burn, was last year. What do you think took it home? Only 97 votes.
The slow burn was last year.
30.9%. This one was close. What do you think came in second?
Taking the program to what it once was.
That actually was tied for third. So you got two other choices. It's either I don't need to move anymore or have a good time, get a degree, win a championship.
Oh, for sure I don't need to move anymore.
It's have a good time, get a degree, win a championship,
So
go to
our
the
fan
NFL.
base is cool with folks just having a good time?
Well, and
I
I think have a good time was in reference to, like, make the most of your time at the university while on the football team.
We'll have a good time. Uh-huh. It's always a song.
It's always a song. And I don't need to move anymore was tied with B, so A and B. I tried to, so I thought the slow burn was last year was going to be, that was the first one I thought of, but I put it at D because you called me out yesterday for putting my stuff at A.
Well, you were honest, though. You said, hey, sometimes I do.
Yeah, sometimes I mix it up.
Sometimes I try
But
to
I was
vary.
vigilant today. I said, I think I'm going to put it at the bottom this time.
I actually like that one. That's the one I would have picked.
You know, there were a lot of good things that I took away from that, but the one that I thought compared most to you was when he said, when you treat young people right, give them what they need to be successful, you'll in turn be successful. And that is like DB quote 101.
The only thing that I like, young people.
But, you know, he said that in reference to knowing the guys, like, they didn't choose Matt Rhule. Matt Rhule was chosen by Trev Alberts, and whether there were other high-end people weighing in on that. But Matt Rhule was not chosen because the players said, hey, go out and get Matt Rhule. Yeah. And so that's what he wanted to he kind of wanted to squash that narrative right away. Like, hey, I know you didn't pick me, but guess what? I chose you. He chose Nebraska going over any other place. Matt Rhule had his pick of the litter when Carolina fired him. Head coaching jobs in college opened up. Other head coaching jobs in the NFL opened up. Not to
and
say
which
that,
you almost never hear. He was honest in his presser when he said it. Yeah, I had other jobs, offers.
But he chose Lincoln.
Let's get that out of the way.
Because he felt like this was the best place to solidify his family. And plus, going back to the I don't need to move anymore quote, I wasn't a part of a military family. You grew up in a military family, but did you bounce around?
Early, but we didn't move a ton.
Yeah, okay, so you didn't move a ton.
My dad was done by the time I was
right, but there are a lot of kids that I know that are from military families that move state to state 1-2 years at a time, right? You go to Maryland, all of a sudden now you're in Florida, all of a sudden you're in California, all of a sudden you're in the Midwest. You bounce around when you're in a military family. The same thing can be said for a head coach like Matt Rhule, who was at Temple for 4 or 5 years, then went to Baylor for 2 years, then went to the NFL for 1.5 to 2 years, and now is back in Lincoln. His kids aren't of the age to where you can move around and feel like they aren't going to have like a setback.
Yeah, good point.
And now by that quote, that actually meant more to me than any other quote in regards to like just it hit me deeper because what are his kids, like 18, 9, and 7 or something like that?
Right around there.
You're talking about moving your youngest daughter at the age of 5, and then she's starting to get some friends. Now you're 6, 7, and now you put her in a new school. Now at a young age, it's easier. But once you start getting to the 9-year-old, he already developed some of his friends in 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade, however old.
And it's a lot more
now.
cognizant of.
And
like
when
what's
you
going on, too.
when you move to a new school, like, yes, it's easier when you jump from grade school to junior high, but most of the time, your grade school friends jump to junior high with you. It's not like, hey, they're going to a different private school. The majority of your group is sticking in the same public school system, and it's hard to insert yourself into friend groups, just in general.
So that's what
it's hard being the new kid.
And you've moved a couple of times just for work. Mm-hmm. Was there some of that you could relate to?
A little bit. And now I'm older, so it's easier for me to live my life, but it's harder for me to make friends at this age because I'm not surrounded by 30 people in school or 60 people or 100 or 1,000 people in school.
You know what's interesting? I think 90% of my time is spent with people that I have met in the last 8 to 10 years.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
But you say that, I'll go back 10 years too. And 10 years ago, I'm in high school. And this is bad, and I wish I did, but I don't talk to anybody in high school. Like anybody from my high school, I don't talk to. And I used to have some like super close friends, but I went to a different college than everybody because I wanted to further my career and also have the chance to play a sport. Now I just stuck with my career, but I don't talk to any of my high school friends, like at all. But I talk to like every day. I talk to my family, some member of my family, or one of my 2 best friends, and that's probably it. I talk to maybe I have a very small group of friends.
I do too.
And I feel like if you get too big, it's hard to balance the rest of the important things in your life.
It sounds crazy, but some of the people that I talk to the most, I met over the internet, like social media.
Really? Oh, like Twitter, like engaging with you?
Or a message board.
That works too, yeah.
Yeah, like seriously, I was kind of just going through that, especially, holidays is not always the greatest time for me, and I was just kind of reflecting over with my dad and my brother, and when I remember the toughest thing about when I lost my dad is I realized how few of, like, confidants, like friends that I had. So I kind of just started over. And I think I just was thinking about it a couple months ago, and I'm like, most of the people that I would spend time with or that I spend the most time talking to, I've met within the last 8 years. And
that doesn't shock me.
Man, I'm 48, though. Like,
right.
Usually the older you get, the more selective you are, and I am. I'm extremely selective. But I thought that was interesting.
Well, and
I wouldn't have picked it. What about you?
I was just going to say, and nowadays it's probably a little bit easier compared to what you and I both had, as in, in the mid-'90s, you're going to maybe go into a school like in a different state or wherever. Like I would go down to Northwest Missouri State. A lot of my friends went to Iowa. Some went to Nebraska. Basically, once they left, you really didn't see or talk to them again because maybe they stayed at school over the summer. But nowadays, the reason why I bring that up, nowadays it's a little easier because it's a lot easier to stay in contact with people. So you might get this a little bit easier to stay in contact with people via Facebook and just texting and, all sorts of stuff that we didn't have even 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
One thing that's interesting, somebody was asking me about, because we were talking about, I told you I was talking to a couple of my former teammates about the grind and wanting to quit once upon a time and how everybody kind of goes through that. And one of my buddies was like, it's kind of a revisionist history that the transfer portal makes it too easy for kids to quit. If we'd have had the portal, and so that sparked the discussion.
Right.
But the one thing that I think we're missing that on the heels of what Shane said, can you imagine if we would have had Zoom or FaceTime or something like that when
the only thing
we were in school where you may not have gotten so homesick.
You didn't even have Facebook.
No, I know. We just had gotten email.
Right. That's a huge, huge difference for me, too. And to add to your point, why it's easier for me when I go to all my other stops is, yes, I have FaceTime. I have, the ability to pick up the phone at any point and call somebody. But I play video games, and I play Fortnite with my best friend back home probably 3 times a week. And I do that because that's my way of hanging out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm hanging out with my person.
I just wonder, would more guys have stuck around or been happier or had more pleasant experiences if they could just FaceTime? In the 90s or 80s or whatever. Because
you could say that, or you could say the latter and say, if you did FaceTime, what if your favorite thing to do was go to trivia nights with your family, or you get together with your friends, and now you find out that they're all doing that because of social media and all that, and now it's making you even more homesick.
So how about this, though? If you're like in this current day and age with recruiting, and remember, because I said the other day, Nebraska's lost pretty much all their advantages that they had in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where they were so different. A couple big games a year. They were always on TV. Prop 48. They could go into different parts of the country and kind of white knight this thing. Now it's like kids can look on social media and Twitter and feel like they're at a 7-on-7 camp in Texas and not be afraid to go there, right? Or the internet is so accessible with places that you only used to hear about. It's almost like, oh, man, I can get there. Like going from, Bessemer, Alabama to Akron, Ohio, no big deal, man.
Right.
I've seen it on the internet. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think it desensitizes you to not wanting to be so far away from home, too, because you're so familiar with places on the internet.
And, sometimes you just have to make that move, right? Like for me in the job, you have to make the move. You don't just get blessed with a sports anchor role in St. Louis, Missouri, that's market 23 or 21 in the Nielsen rankings. You just don't get that. Yeah. You have to go to the smaller markets and build yourself up. It's kind of like a football player. If you're not the best player to come out of your state, like say you went to Georgia and you're like, I want to be a Georgia Bulldog and I want a scholarship to play, but if I can't get a scholarship, I can't afford to go to college. Well, if you can't get a scholarship to play at Georgia, but Wyoming is offering you a full ride scholarship to play football, well, you start your journey there because you know you have to. To get to where you want to be, you have to do that.
Well, and I think the other thing, though, Drew Down, is there's like different generations, and they're not that far removed, where it's like it all of a sudden became okay, like almost overnight. What do you mean you're leaving? You're going to go where? Oh, we can keep in touch. Like things like that seem to have literally happened pretty quick. I remember when my sister, I have one sister, I have three total, but one on each coast and one right in the middle, if you want to call St. Louis the middle. But I have East Coast and I have California. And I remember when they left, it was like, man, how could you do that? That is so far away. Right? Even when I was picking colleges, I wanted to stay relatively close where my parents could see me. Now it's like I was afraid to take a job. Very good company. I kick myself sometimes. It's one of those things you try not to think about. But I would have had to move to Denver. And I remember my first wife, we just had gotten pregnant with Caleb. Moving wasn't an option. Been a fantastic job, though, right? And it's just like, I wonder now with the ability to, like, Google obstetricians and
like what if the best doctor was there? You use it as almost a convincer.
So you guys can you have so many more tools and resources that I think
definitely
can limit fear, because really fear is just you don't. It's the unknown, right? So I don't know. It's a
you talk about just limiting fear, and that's not just the internet, but Matt Rhule limits fear in his players.
Totally is an empower.
And everything that he says, everything that how he acts, everything he does, he makes you feel like this is a safe place for you to be.
Mm-hmm. I get it, and I think it's by design. It is so intentional, it's not even funny. He's trying to groom young men.
You're questioning your life at this point.
It's really what he does. And I think it's what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that he thinks that that's his calling. At least as I see it.
Right. Now, there's plenty of other things that we'll talk about tomorrow on Coffee and Cream. We can even, if there's something that intrigues us, or if you want to put something on our radar, feel free to DM us. That's at Damon Benning on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rogers TV. I'm going to sift through Matt Rhule's talk again, Trev Albert's talk again, see if I missed anything. And if there is something, we'll bring it to the show tomorrow. Who else do we have? Who's on the show? Brian Edwards is on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see if we can win some folks some money. We got Brandon Vogel,
Thursday guest.
And we were shooting for...
Well, we have our first-time NFL guest.
Oh, Cynthia Freeland on tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Really big into analytics, so we can dive deep into. We talked about stats in the Hall of Fame today, and if it's more about seeing or if it's all based on stats, she kind of does a combo.
And football is a little different, much different than baseball.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So plenty ahead on the show. We appreciate you joining us here on Coffee and Cream. Again, if you missed anything on Coffee and Cream, head to the podcast place. That is Apple, Spotify. Type in Hail Varsity Radio. You can catch the whole show. If you want to catch Morning Dump, that's on Hurrdat Sports. We'll see you tomorrow.